This is how we ride. This is how we do.
How you're trying to take this race right. So when I went to this race years ago, the first year I ran it was 2005.
Okay.
And I went there just because I saw, oh, it's a cool little race. I saw Billy Pouch run it, and he led a bunch of laps in the Wilkie car, and Brett Hearn run it a few times. Growing up like myself, I watched Thursday Night Thunder and all that stuff. So I'm like, I'd like to go do that. So I went and ran a car, and I made the race and ran ninth the first time I'd ever been there. Well, then the next year we go there and I win. It's like, hell, this is pretty cool. And it really wasn't, back then, it wasn't about paying for rides or whether you could get the cup or whether you could do any of that. It was about, you know what? Steve Kinser's racing there this year, and I don't ever have a chance to race that guy. Or Sammy Swindell or Tony Stewart or whatever. And granted, I know guys paid for rides. Heck, the year I won, I paid for a ride.
Now, did you pay for or did you just help out?
At the end of the year I won, literally, I wasn't going to go back. And because the first year I went there, and there was a friend of mine that got the ride, which I found out later he sponsored it, which I didn't know. So I went and ran this car. Well, the next year, I talked to Greg Wilkie, and I'm like, hey, I don't know if you know anybody that has a car available, but I don't really know if I'm going to go back or whatever. So Greg Wilkie's like, he called me probably a month or not even a month before the Chili Bowl, and he says, listen, I actually have a guy that you could drive for. His name is Steve Smith. He's from Australia. He builds these Hawk race engines. He does it all himself, and he comes over and races with us. And I'm like, I know exactly who that guy was. I said, they just ran. I said, I started like late in the back of the pack, and Michael Pickens started right in front of me, and he ran like fifth. And I ran like ninth. And he says, yeah, he says, that's the car that Michael Pickens drove. It's available. And I'm like, oh, really? So then Steve called me, and he said, look, here's the deal. And we didn't even know each other. He says, I've heard of your dad. I'm like, okay. And he says, if you want to drive my car, it's literally like, this is dead honest truth. He says, you want to drive my car? It's $5,000. And I thought,
oh my God,
damn, $5,000? Are you kidding me? And he
2006?
And it was in the year I won it, 2006. And I thought, man, all right, I've saved some money and I'll do this. And I called my dad, and my dad said, let me tell you something. You get paid to drive these race cars. You don't go around paying. I said, yeah, but I want to do it. So make a long story short, he said, give me $2,500 up front.
Stop. We want the long story. Go with the long story. Continue.
No, the long story was my old man was pissed. He's like, listen, you start doing something like that, everybody's going to think you're always going to pay. And the next thing you know, if you get paid 20% to drive a race car instead of the percentage you've been getting, you have nobody to blame but yourself. And I'm like,
right.
He's not wrong, but I just wanted to do it. And I thought, you know what? I don't really have to answer to anybody. I got my own money. And so I was like, Steve Smith said, give me $2,500, send me $2,500 with a check. So I did. And so he said, when you get to the track, bring the other $2,500. So we go all week long and we race, and this whole deal gets done. And out of like whatever reasoning, whether you think it's crazy, it's an upset, a fluke or whatever, we were one of the best cars in the building from the minute we unloaded to the night we won. So like, it was so crazy. And I said to him, we went through all of this stuff. And I remember AJ from Knoxville, good friend of mine, owns a Dingus. He was there. Like, everybody's hanging out in this pit area. It got to be 1, 2 in the morning, whatever time it was. Back then, they didn't kick you out at midnight.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I said to him, I said, man, I owe this guy $2,500.
I was about to say, hold on, at this point, he's got to give you some money, right? You won the damn race. What?
We didn't even talk about a percentage. We literally didn't even talk about any of this stuff. I'm telling you, dude, I said, we didn't talk about any of this. I'm sitting there, and this is no lie, like, one of my good friends, James Spinks, who used to work for USAC, he was there, which I grew up with him. And then AJ was there. There was only like 3 of us, like in this Kelly. There was like, they're literally all the people that went the first year. They didn't come back, and we were sitting there. And I said, "Hey, Steve, can I talk to you?" And he said, "Yeah, what's that?" No, he's Australian, so you know how most Australians are pretty cool and fun time. Anyways, yeah. I said, "Hey, man, look at I owe you $2,500." And he looked right at me. He said, "Oh hell, mate!" And he said, "You take that check and you rip it up, and I'm going to give you half of the money we brought in for the whole week." So I made like $5,000. Like
Okay.
literally at the end of the day, I mean, like, yeah, I got it. I made 2,500. It was so crazy, man. It was unexpected and fun and just, sometimes racing isn't like that anymore, man. But back then, man, I was just trying to find my way, man. It was crazy.
Man, that's an insane story. That's
I'm telling you,
I wanted the long version for a reason.
It could get way longer. Back in the day, they used to have a lot of fun. You had the elephant run that everybody. I literally, as I won this race, Roger Slack was the flagman, and I knew him because his brother is a part owner of Bicknell Chassis, and Roger obviously ran Eldorf for a lot of years, ran Charlotte. Roger flagged in the ASAs. He literally said, "I've given my flags to one other guy after they won a race, but I want to give you my checkered flags." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And I ran into Steve Kinser of all people, run up his lever and flatten his tire on the way to the front. And I felt so bad. I'm like, God damn, I just hit the best guy ever to do this stuff.
That's hilarious.
And this is, I'm telling you, dude, I apologize on the microphone, and you know how that is. Everybody's like, "Oh, that's a half-hearted apology." But I'm telling you, I had hung out with Steve Kinser for 4 nights straight at this elephant run. Like, this elephant run would get done, they'd close the bar.
Dude, I stayed there, and they got the karaoke. The karaoke on Wednesday.
Telling you,
dude, it's a great time.
Back in the day, the elephant run, yeah, we would go there. Tony Stewart, I mean, you name them. Any major racer was there. And then Taylor Weld, who used to own Weld Wheels, would open up this other thing where they would have receptions, and we'd go in there till whenever. And so, like, literally, as I was walking out of the building after all these press conferences, I ran right into Steve Kinser, of all people, after I'd run him over. And I said, dude, and I literally felt like 2 foot tall, and I was scared to death because, like, he's an ornery son of a bitch, you know what I mean? He's like, I said, "Hey, dude, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to do that." And he literally looked me right in the face. He said, "Hey, don't worry about it." He says, "I was in the way anyways. I wasn't even, I know I was in 5th, but I was going backwards, so you just did me a favor." He said, I thought, holy hell, how about that? That's exactly how them old guys they'd be like, "You know what? Good job." And I had him sign my flags. I get these flags in my basement. Steve Kinser signed flags for my Chili Bowl deal from Roger Slack.
Did you?
One of the cool things I got going on.
I'm assuming that.
This is how we ride. This is how we do. Ride mud slide.